All right, I would like to call to order the Whatcom County's Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force Steering Committee meeting for Wednesday, November 12th, 2025. We're meeting in a virtual format today, and we do have a quorum, you said, Jill?
Yes, we have a quorum.
Okay, thanks. We'll dive right in. We're starting off with our year-end report.
I think that's me and Pearl.
All right, Pearl.
New kitty. All right, so you all got the copy of the draft year-end report in your packet. And what we're hoping for from you today are any comments about things that seem inaccurate or missing. And then we'll edit and get the report into the IPRTF, the packet for the IPRTF as a whole. So it's open, floor is open. Anything you saw.
Peter.
Well, first of all, great job on the report. It was very readable, thorough, and brief. So thank you. Here are just a couple of things. I think it would be great to have titles on I'm not looking at the report at the moment. I'm just working off my my notes on my iPhone. So I apologize if I'm not connecting this to the page number, but it'd be great to have titles along with the names of the participants of the work groups. I think that would give better context. And then the legislative work group members are Brian Estes, Peter Frazier, Dan Hamill, Scott Cortice, and Riley Sweeney. And then the other thing was for number 6, it seems like referencing the sim mapping that we're doing, you're also referenced in 10 would be good because the sim mapping is so closely tied to project number 6. And that's what I've got. Again,
Right.
Thanks. Very good.
Thanks, Peter.
And I want to just give a shout out to Jennifer Moon, who is the main author of this.
And I want to couple that by thanking Jill, because Jill also helped do a review and just her, keen attention to detail. So thanks to Jill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So thanks for that feedback.
Anybody else have anything? All right. Good job, Holly Marty.
Thanks.
All right. Moving on to the IPTRF and the Law and Justice Council enabling statutes. So, Jill, this was a reminder and an information for us, right?
Yeah, this is something that Heather asked for. There was a conversation about what specifically the Law and Justice Council was tasked with.
Right. Yeah. I was curious of that too. So,
Yeah.
So, can you put the Law and Justice, is there some way that we can reference that and have a little conversation?
Yeah, do you want me to screen share it?
If you could, please.
Okay, give me a minute to get to that page and post it. Does everyone see the screen?
Yeah. As you can see, one of the ones that I wanted to really zero in on was the jail management line item in this code or in this RCW. That'd be subsection B, little b. That's pretty broad, obviously. What is jail management? How does it apply to the IPTRF? Well, it certainly applies, I believe, to the work we're doing with the implementation plan. There's a lot in there about programmatic things that would be jail management adjacent, or not even adjacent, but there's certainly a nexus. So, I don't know how important it is that we point to the Law and Justice Council on certain pieces of work we do, but I think it's valuable because it is enabled by state law. So there's a lot of anyway, go ahead, Heather.
Um, I was actually wondering if we could just read, even just read it out loud together. And my hope was just in the spirit of it's important to revisit the enabling, all of it, the enabling RCW, the enabling ordinance. I think just to give us the space to even reflect on, are we actually doing this work? Is there something we should change about our work plan moving forward to ensure we are hitting on these targets? Are all of the people represented? And that was my hope in asking for this conversation. And also just with I'm not sure everybody even remembers that we are also the Law and Justice Council, and that might be helpful in some of the conversations we're having with the county and even reading, like I would love to just read it out loud for those of us who are auditory learners too. Is that okay? Does anybody, Peter, do you hate that idea? I see your hand raised.
I don't hate the idea, but I'm wondering if maybe we should take some time in the next IPRTF meeting to go over some of these things, because we do have new members and it is good for us to review these at least once a year, I would think. And well, and maybe we could, I think we're going to have time in the next meeting to do that, depending on what else we talk about today. Well, what would you think of that?
I think that that would be awesome. I also would love to talk about it here at steering and make sure steering's all on the same page with what and how we want to bring anything forward to IPRTF, if you guys are up for that. And I think we have some time today to do that too, if you're
No, I agree. We have time. We have a pretty light agenda actually, so.
okay. I'm happy to read it out loud unless my voice annoys everybody.
No,
Is
please
that
do.
okay? Okay. So the RCW for Local Law and Justice Council rules. 1, every county legislative authority shall by resolution or ordinance establish a local law and justice council. The county legislative authority shall determine the size and composition of the council, which shall include the county sheriff and a representative of the municipal police departments within the county prosecutor and a representative of the municipal prosecutors within the county, a representative of the city legislative authorities within the county, a representative of the county superior, juvenile, district, and municipal courts, the county jail administrator, the county clerk, the county risk manager, and the secretary of corrections and his or her designees. Officials designated may appoint representatives. So even pausing there on part 1, do we have all of that representation at IPRTF?
Yes, we do.
We do, yeah. I think it's called, there's some different, the vernacular's a little different, but they're the same functions.
So like we have a juvenile court representative.
Yeah.
Do you know who it is off the top of your head?
Raylene.
Oh, so Raylene's is she the county clerk?
She is the court clerk and what's her title, Jill? She's
I'm trying to remember. It's
Superior Court and
she and
Juvenile.
Stephanie, and I'm gonna blank on her last name.
Stephanie Kraft.
Stephanie
Thank you.
Kraft.
Yes.
I mixed
Okay.
those two up because they have similar positions.
Great. What about Caleb? Is he officially on, or does a sheriff cover both the county jail administrator, the
The
secretary of corrections, and the sheriff role?
Yes, the sheriff serves both those roles.
Okay. What about the county risk manager?
That would be Satpal.
Okay. Okay, so it's good to be clear about who's serving in what roles and what perspectives they should be sharing on behalf of, can we call on Satpal to say, what do you think from the risk management perspective on this matter? Go ahead, Eric.
Heather,
Yeah.
both myself and Eric, we have a county risk committee, and both Eric and myself are members of that, both being elected officials. So we do fill that role, both of us or either of us.
Eric, were you going to say the same thing?
Well, actually, I was going to add a little bit with more specificity. We do have someone who's designated as a risk pool manager, and that's comes from the HR department under SAPPAL. And that might, I mean, you know, I understand what Jill said and what SAPPAL said, but you know, with more specificity, we might want to have somebody involved from there. I don't know, SAPPAL, what do you think about that?
To me, yeah, we do represent on the committee, and we are elected officials, and HR manager is an appointee. They're not elected officials, but if we need be, it can be remedied. But in the spirit of the law, we do meet that condition.
Great.
I think he's right. I'll say that.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay. What about a representative of the municipal prosecutors within the county?
Now, we used to have the court, Muni Court, right?
Yes. Bellingham Municipal Court is it Tammy or Tracy? Tammy Bennett is the municipal court representative from Bellingham.
Okay.
And look at my list here. Hang on a sec.
So, you know, I'm not sure that's the same thing, Jill. And I'll add that if we're asking the questions, it seems to me that we should put out an invite to the prosecutors from the different smaller cities as well as Bellingham. And they do have a group that gets together. You know, maybe they'll send somebody from Blaine or from, you know, or Ferndale or something like that.
Well,
I just don't feel like the court administrator from Bellingham Municipal fits that role.
Raylene, when she was a court administrator in Blaine, was also serving the small cities administrative role from the courts. So I don't know if she was replaced in that role, because I think there is a small cities court representative position.
There might be, but Heather's question was about city prosecutors.
Well,
Representative, I'm just going through that list, a representative of the municipal prosecutors within the county.
Right.
Yeah.
so when we added the Law and Justice Council, when we designated the task force as the Law and Justice Council, there was the council members. Gosh, how many years ago was it, Barry? I don't know if you remember this, but I had done up a chart that showed the current IPRTF members, the required folks, who's required on Law and Justice Council, and who would meet those positions. And I'm gonna have to dig up that chart.
Yeah.
It's been a number of years and I just don't remember, but we had those positions named at that point. So I will see if I can find that and get that to you guys.
But I guess to Eric's point, his point is there a difference between the prosecutor representative and the court itself? So
Right.
that's what he's asking.
I see Tasha's hands up, and I do remember that chart, Jill, and it'd be awesome if we can find it.
Go ahead, Tasha.
I'm sorry, because I was on the phone, so I might have missed part of it. So this is the IPRTF representatives that you're specifically talking about?
We're pairing up the Law and Justice Council requirements to the IPTR positions to make sure that we have all of the spots on the Law and Justice Council covered. And we did this exercise, that's what Jill was describing, where we had a list for the council to look at to make sure that we were covering the spots. So that's what we're doing right now, just looking at.
Well, we have on the website, it says Tracy Cruz is a small city municipal court representative. Is that not what we're talking about?
Well, no, now Eric's talking about the prosecutors themselves from other jurisdictions, not just the courts.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Tasha, I just want to say you're not off base. Jill said the same thing.
Okay.
I'm going to keep reading to
Go ahead.
number Number 2, a combination of counties may establish a local law and justice council by intergovernmental agreement. The agreement shall comply with the requirements of this section. 3, the local law and justice council may address issues related to A, maximizing local resources, including personnel and facilities, reducing duplication of services, and sharing resources between local and state government in order to accomplish local efficiencies without diminishing effectiveness. B, jail management. C, mechanisms for communication of information about offenders, including the feasibility of shared access to databases. And D, partnerships between the department and local community policing and supervision programs to facilitate supervision of offenders under the respective jurisdictions of each and timely response to an offender's failure to comply with the terms of supervision. Number 4, the county legislative authority may request technical assistance in coordinating services with other units or agencies of state or local government, which shall include the department, the Office of Financial Management, and the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs. 5, upon receiving a request for assistance from a county, the department may provide the requested assistance. And 6, the secretary may adopt rules for the submittal, review, and approval of all requests for assistance made to the department. So I'm not sure we're addressing what. I'd love to hear thoughts on 3, A, B, C, and D. And if those conversations are actually happening in other places.
Tasha.
Well, I was looking at this and reviewing it before the meeting. I agree on the C. I think this has been an ongoing discussion when we talk about the index committee and data sharing for, and we, I think, have all talked about, we have an identified siloing effect of communication when it comes to, well, one, police-wise, we don't all share the same police on our side. The courts have different systems, and then of course all the social jail reentry processes don't share information, so it's hard. I know the jail has some clearinghouse information just within the jail, but I think that's on some of the smaller discussions on the side that I've been involved in. C has been a huge issue that we have all discussed as why we're not really having good data about the effectiveness, which is one of the B under the IPRTF, under the Whatcom Community, and just under the Whatcom County Code 2.46, it says continuum that effectively reduces incarceration. I think that it's this C is something that we, or B, or yeah, C should be something that I think we should focus on to really, I think that's where I think one of the biggest gaps is communication and information sharing. And I know that we've had discussions about HIPAA, certain rules about not having signed forms, so that agencies are able to share effectively. So I think that's, and then, but again, it kind of comes back to the discussion on whether or not, like under governmental programs, I think we could effectively sign a document, but then you've got nonprofit organizations and you've got medical organizations. I mean, there's just such a cadre of different organizations working on the same issue that there's a bunch of different laws that impact how we can share our communication.
That's true. Peter.
Just to add to what Tasha's saying, it does seem to me that we are doing a fair amount of work on C in particular. Jail management, I'm not entirely sure what it is, Heather, if you're suggesting that there are gaps here and we should begin working on other things as well. Let's sit here. I feel like jail management is in discussion quite a bit with over the last few years, and certainly with the planning and design and build out of the new jail. I've certainly learned a lot about jail management, and we seem to speak to it. But are there things in particular that you're thinking that we're missing here?
I'm thinking, I guess one way that you could read this is much more operational lens, like if it was really, police departments talking to each other, offender information sharing is different than like dashboard kind of data conversations. And maybe I just am thinking about it on a different level. I think you guys I'm tracking completely with you on that policy level and the overall community level. And I'm curious about D, what people think on the D, on letter D, and if there's anything more we could be doing. Or a more focused conversation on that.
I'm curious, are you thinking or others thinking that this gives us more powers than we typically are using? We are very much a policy organization, and we make recommendations to the council, the executive. I'm curious if you think that this gives us other powers that we're not using.
Maybe?
I think that's how you define some of these things. Like, what is jail management? I mean,
Yeah.
I would love about 8 or 9 bullet points under that to really flesh it out, and so we would know, kind of where our lane is. Tasha.
Well, I guess speaking specifically to D and partnerships between obviously police and supervision programs, I mean, I don't know, if I know of someone who's on probation for something and I find them violating probation, what they're supposed to be doing under probation, I don't arrest them for probation violations. I write it up and it's sent to the courts, and they evaluate and determine if it's a violation that's worthy of a warrant, so to speak. So in that, and then I don't hear anything until I find out if there is a warrant issued for that person at a later contact with that person. So unless there's it's really weird, because then you're over, and I know Richie understands this a little. Sometimes there's laws that are it's a civil paperwork, like, and I don't have any authority over civil violations of civil orders. Same with probation. And then of course, DOC is this whole separate entity for people under community custody that police are not locally involved in. So, I mean, it's very complex that we have good partnerships. We're talking continually, but I don't know what more you want to know about that specific D.
I think I'm asking, like, is this something that the IPRTF actually talks about, weighs in on, creates policy for? And is there anything that we could be doing that we're not related to letter D? It's helpful to understand what it actually means happening on the ground. And see Sat Paul's hands up.
Yeah, go ahead, Sat Paul.
I was thinking same what Peter just said, that we have been so preoccupied with the jail for last couple of years, and rightly so. But the interpretation was that I remember being on the council at that time, was that this is one of the legal requirements, and we thought there's so much overlap rather than creating two organizations, we do that. But maybe, Heather, what you're saying, that we do have more jurisdiction, put it this way, C and D, which we have not paid attention to or have discussed, right? I rather have this organization act as both because it's most efficient. But I think this is something maybe a lot of other people didn't even know, that it is a dual organization. And this is a state mandate that we have to meet. And I think if we bring it into the mainstream of our agendas and things, and seek some of the inputs from municipal jurisdictions and Eric Ritchie's office, that some of these, or the jail sheriff's office, that we can seek more information or discuss some policies. So, but I think, Heather, you are right that there have been some things which we have not paid attention to.
I see there's lots of quiet people too. I'd love, Holly, your perspective being in this work so deeply, and Birdie and Brian and Marty and Hannah. And I think too, we could also look at, I think the two key pieces for the IPRTF ordinance to review would be the purpose and the functions. I think those ones we are doing really great, but we kind of crosswalking this conversation with that and seeing where things fit into the IPRTF ordinance also could be a helpful next conversation.
Yeah.
But Holly,
No,
I see you're at, oh, go ahead, sorry.
I've also, been not concerned, but wanting to make sure that we are fulfilling these roles with our work. And, because many times in the council, when we have a item that's a flood control zone district item, for instance, we actually have to call that out in the agenda as that's what we're acting as. So we might want to think about how that works on our agendas and the kind of the public record we leave behind as we go through our processes. So that's another piece of the puzzle. Anything else? Holly, go ahead.
Yeah, I could just jump on that comment, Barry, which is I remember when I first started working on this, I had that confusion that I think others probably have, is the relationship between the IPRTF and the Law and Justice Council and how they came to be linked. And I feel like it might be good to just at least once a year put that on our IPRTF calendar as a regular thing. Every year we come back to, how did we get here? What does it mean? What are the implications? And we just make sure we do it each year.
Yeah, I agree.
Jill here. Barry, I'm sorry, I just caught the last of your comment about the agendas. What were you saying?
I was just using an example of how we do that on our council agendas, where we call out if we're voting on an item as the Flood Controls District Board of Supervisors, we actually annotate that in the record.
Yes, and I do that for the IPRTF when it does act as Law and Justice Council. So
Oh, okay,
we do
good.
that already. And also, if you look at the top of every IPRTF agenda, it does say Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force / Legal and Justice Council. So
have you identified things within an agenda as Law and Justice Council specific before?
I don't do that. I think once I was asked to label something as a discussion by the Law and Justice Council, but I think it would be really easy if Peter and Heather wanted to let me know that a certain agenda item should be discussed by the IPRTF as the Law and Justice Council. I'm happy to make that annotation on their direction.
Do you guys comfortable with that, Heather, Peter?
Yeah.
And I also just emailed everyone the list that the council members worked from when the IPRTF incorporated the Law and Justice Council. I think there was if I remember correctly, an attempt to sort of balance expanding the IPRTF to include the required members without making it, you know, as big as it could have been. You know, I think we added quite a few members over time, and it's a big task force. So that's the worksheet that everyone worked from.
Okay. Peter.
Well, I was just going to ask Jill the same question about any memory she has of when were the times when we were acting specifically as the Law and Justice Council. And then also just thinking about it here, this is a good reminder, and I can well imagine any time that we are working on Project 6, we might be working as the Law and Justice Council under A. And when we're working on aspects of the data project, I can't remember what number project that is, that would be under C. And down the line. So we certainly could be specific about which body we're which ordinance is it that we're acting under.
Yeah.
I love that. Can I add a couple things to that too?
Oh, sure, of course.
So just sort of zooming out, the RCW, I feel like it's emphasizing like maximizing and sharing local resources as well, right? Like the letter A, that's what it says. And we could also, as part, not only just with the SIM, but IPRTF could map the funding and operations of things across the justice and behavioral systems to start to see where duplications are and inefficiencies or missed partnerships. So I could see some real alignment there and value, especially as I think that was something that came up a lot in the Justice Project when we talked about what's going to fund what. And I also think the RCW is focused a little bit more specifically on like how to share offender and supervision data. And we prioritize data in IPRTF a lot, as you all know, and as you mentioned, but we could, I don't know, Bertie, if this is already part of Index, but making data sharing agreements, if that's been a major barrier, that could be a deliverable or a goal for next year, making the data sharing agreements aligned with the Law and Justice Council compliance, and maybe this RCW empowers us more to make that a deliverable and a requirement. And we could support, like, what does that need to look like and who needs to be involved and who needs to talk to who. And then I think one thing too, the RCW does that IPRTF could maybe do more of is that collaboration with Department of Corrections. And we could expand some of our thinking around the DOC opportunities, partnerships, and just with the RCW empowerment of like efficiencies, right? That I think we do this, but under the RCW umbrella, asking the questions of what's working, what's redundant or siloed, what's missing or underfunded but critical. And we do that all the time at every meeting already. But now, like, knowing that it's also part of the Law and Justice Council role and it's in compliance to ask those questions, I think is really good for the culture of the IPRTF body.
Yeah. Brian.
Yes, I just wanted to share, I just did a little bit of research about the term jail management and how other counties have used it in their law and justice councils. And it covers like policy coordination, resource sharing as well. I mean, it's both policy, intergovernmental relationships, facility operations, fiscal oversight, et cetera. I mean, it is, a number of counties have defined it more at the granular level. And so we certainly could do that at some point.
Yeah. Bertie?
I think from my perspective, looking at item C, which is the one focusing on data and communication back and forth, one of my real recommendations or goals as we move forward in the next year is to avoid having different layers of people doing overlapping work on data, and that is easier said than done. We have one major recommendation going forward, which is for the county to hire essentially a project leader to pull together all of the recommendations from Village Reach in terms of data sharing and communication to move us forward. And then on a potentially separate level, we have a group like the Index Committee doing data sharing among our municipal courts and superior courts and this and that to share data around offenders and other things. And personally, I think we will be far better served and use less overall energy and people's time and resources to wrap those together, because I think in order to evaluate the implementation plan, we need those individual agreements in place, and will be far more efficient if we develop a few good agreements that pass muster and roll them out to the players. So I would recommend that, yes, that is an important part of our work. And certainly at this point, the IPRTF has taken fairly strictly a policy recommendation role and passed some strong recommendations on to the exec and the county council. I think that this would roll into that, and the index committee could be redeveloped into an important role, but it's not going to ever be a project manager, and it's not going to ever have that high level coordination that I really think we need to move the data issues forward in all their complexity. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Thanks, Bertie. Tasha.
Couple things she mentioned. Heather mentioned the DOC. DOC is for state people and state charges, and probation deals with our jail issues. So I guess when I think about Whatcom County and reducing reincarceration, yeah, DOC is an important part, but I think locally, when we're thinking about what's directly impacting local, there is a difference between the two. And then kind of building on, I while you guys were talking about law and justice and data, I Googled law and justice Whatcom County, and I found the data integration and criminal justice system in Whatcom County. It's a report from 2003 talking about the importance of, it's 30 pages long, of trying to integrate better data between all the different organizations. And of course, that is even grown exponentially as technology has expanded, and we use it all even more so. I don't know if Richie's still on, but we used to have a system. It was old and clunky called the AS400. But one thing that was nice about it is like all of us contributed to it. So I couldn't read the sheriff's reports, but I could see that the person I was contacted had been contacted a week before by the sheriff's department at a different location. And that's something that we've moved away from, as far as there are different systems, but I have to log into a couple different systems to try and it doesn't integrate like it used to in that way. So yeah, as the systems have expanded, there's been in some degrees, almost less sharing, or I can have access to more information, but now I have to log into multiple different web-based systems to find that information, which makes it just a little less fluid and efficient. So
On the data, Tasha, though, I'm wondering about number 4. It's saying that the Law and Justice Council can request technical assistance from the state. And I actually wonder about if that's a good match with the data, if under the Law and Justice Council, we could request technical assistance to implement the Village Reach report and dashboard creation.
I mean, it would be coming under a grant of some sort.
I don't know.
You would still, as Bertie mentioned, well, I mean, I guess it depends what you're looking for. Like if I have a person, if we knew, this is where one of my not concerns, but one of the things that I've been running into when I think about this, how jail reentry is reducing reincarceration and how are we serving people. Sometimes you don't know about the people until they're rebooked into jail, but as an officer, I'm recognizing that we're coming into contact with them, maybe not to the level that we arrest them for a criminal act, but we're starting to come into contact with them. We might be trying to engage with Grace or LEAD or one of the other services to try and deal with if it's a mental health concern or addiction concern, but and I have to write a police report that I contacted said person, but that doesn't it doesn't go to the court system because it's not a criminal arrest. It's just a contact. But that kind of information would be very useful to some of the programs for their case management peer support. Now, again, out in Linden, I'm not as embedded with all these different programs in Bellingham, and I know they probably do more effective sharing. When there was, I can't think of her name, I think it was Julie was embedded at the police department in Bellingham with our behavioral health officer. Then, of course, there was a lot more intensive case management for our highest utilizers. That was useful, but I assume stuff like that is still going on. But then, of course, we don't know we don't know who social services are helping. So I don't know, to log to somebody. So, I guess it would be something like if we had 50 people that we were specifically tracking and, they got arrested, we put them into mental health court or whatever. Who is the person overseeing all that, pulling from the police departments going, oh, this person seems to be starting to go down into crisis and we want to try and stop it before it gets to the level where they're arrested. I think that's where we're going with, I think it would be more effective data sharing because we want to prevent the arrest before it happens and start to invest in them. So, and I know there's a lot of that going on more in Bellingham, but again, the data sharing is it's how do I know that you guys that this person is actively engaging with Grace or LEAD or one of those programs? I don't have that information. So when I contact them, the only thing I might know is if they're on probation for something or not any of those other things.
Bertie, I see your hand and I want to add too that I think WAHA, the Whatcom Alliance for Health Advancement, used to pilot a central database around those high utilizers, particularly in the ER, but there's some overlap too. And I see Dean in the wings. Dean was the interim ED there for some time.
Right.
And my understanding was that the county purchased a software called Julata that was supposed to be doing that central. And I'm not sure if it is, what happened to that. And I think that we're also talking a little bit about separate things like implementation and operationalizing it versus are we maximizing the resources that we potentially are eligible for under the Law and Justice Council.
So I'm going to move us along to our part 2 of this conversation, which I think your hands will apply to as well. And that is the IPTRF enabling language and how does that play with the Law and Justice Council? So that's kind of part 2 of this agenda item. And do we want to put that up? Yeah. And Bertie, go ahead. You can certainly keep your thoughts going on what you had going there. So
Well, all I was going to say is I sat in so many of these data conversations in the last year plus since getting involved here, and I I think it's a matter of really top level county government, county executive prioritization, because there's a lot of Band-Aid, this and that, human resource intense things that can get done to do some data sharing on individual levels. But ultimately, that's not cost effective in the long run. And part of the issue is when you're spending public dollars, data is not very sexy. You know, you can get people wrapped around housing projects and wrapped around a lot of service things more easily than a new software update. And yet, I think we reflect many county governments that were way behind. And if we really want to move this forward, I think we're going to have to be strong leaders to lay out a plan and have it be something somewhat concrete that has numbers to it and plans to it. And then we figure out how we start investing that money. That's my two cents.
I couldn't agree more, Bertie. And then also I wanted to note that we are using Gelada.
Yeah.
And that is a important function, the health department and the ART and such.
Tasha.
Know that Bellingham had a guy come up. It was for us. It was like a data sharing platform that would connect all the police departments' information, not complete reports, but we would be able to see each other's information as to, who's contacting who. I think it's being used down somewhere in a bigger agency in California. You can set it up for it to capture specific data across multiple platforms. Christine Paulson at Bellingham PD, the IT gal, she's been studying it, and I know Bellingham PD is looking at it. There's a cost to it because it's like it can access all of our reporting systems for, but I mean, you can set it up like she was talking about this program where for officer wellness specifically, it logs each type of call. Like, so once I hit 5 critical incidents that I've been dispatched to, it has a number assigned to it, then I just get pulled. I have to talk to a therapist. I have to get, make sure that the trauma is not negatively impacting me. And then, it's just like a number system. So they said there's a capability to build the system however you want it for whatever specialty. So I don't know if it's something that can combine with the court system, and then I'm sure there's more other programs like this, but I know this is one specific one that Bellingham PD is looking at and has been talking to other agencies about everybody getting on board so that we can more effectively share information. So that might be one program since they're already looking at it to explore.
Well, this has been a great conversation. Now that we have the ordinance up for the IPTRF, is there anything anybody wants to discuss within this document? And what I think things to look for are gaps between the two, the Law and Justice Council and the IPTRF. Overlap, obviously we would look at that. But is there anything anybody wanted to bring up today? We could spend about 5-10 minutes on this if we need to.
Is it okay if I read the purpose and function out loud too?
Absolutely. Go ahead, Heather.
Okay. Purpose of the Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force is to continually review Whatcom County's criminal justice and behavioral health programs and make specific recommendations to safely and effectively reduce incarceration of individuals struggling with mental illness and chemical dependency, minimize jail utilization by pretrial defendants who can safely be released, and identify, examine, and recommend implementing programs and policies that focus on intervention and prevention strategies that are pursuant to incarceration. The purpose of the Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force is also to function as the Whatcom County Law and Justice Council as required by RCW, etc. Functions. The task force will consider national best practices and report on and make recommendations to the county council, executive, and other appropriate officials regarding A, the construction and operation of a new or expanded multi-purpose crisis triage facility to assist with jail and hospital diversion of individuals struggling with mental illness and chemical dependency. B, development of new or enhancement of existing programs designed along a continuum that effectively reduces incarceration of individuals struggling with mental illness and chemical dependency. C, effective pretrial service programs that assure that defendants appear for court proceedings while minimizing jail utilization by defendants who can safely be released. D, necessary and effective programs and services that can assist offenders with successful transition from both the jail and triage center back to the community to reduce rates of recidivism and improve public health and safety. E, the ongoing staff support and funding for the task force. F, review of the diversion programs of the county and all cities and establishment of benchmarks to measure the effectiveness of the programs in reducing incarceration. And G, practice evidence-based and or other strategies and interventions that positively impact the social determinants of health that address interventions for criminogenic factors. It's so good to read that out loud once a year, don't you think? It's like our Pledge of Allegiance. It's amazing.
That's a good analogy. Now we need a flag.
I know. And it makes me want to have a dashboard of metrics that we just get regular reports on, like that pretrial service program. Could we just get, what are the top 3 things that we could get from the pretrial services unit at every IPRTF meeting? How many clients have been diverted? How many clients are actively using their services? Like what's important to us to sort of monitor regarding each of these letters? That's where I go a little bit, but other thoughts too?
Well, let's hear from Jill.
Well, my thoughts aren't on that specifically, Heather. So if you guys have thoughts on Heather's comment, please go ahead.
Tasha?
I like the idea that you're mentioning how many people are involved. So I'm speaking specifically to F, review of the programs of the county and all cities and the benchmarks to measure effectiveness of the programs in reducing incarceration. This kind of speaks to the panel discussion we had on JPOP last meeting and some of the feedback that we got from Daryl and Joey. And I guess that was one of the things with the panel that I was a little disappointed that it wasn't very specific on the benchmarks of effectiveness that I was hoping to get a little more information on. I went looking, I found the leads information in the recent video they made that showed like, hey, this has an 81% reduction, you know, this number of arrests prior to it, a year after, we've reduced the number of arrests by, 500 arrests. It's like, that's what I'm looking for each of the programs. I think that would be, and I think just even a place where all the programs are listed. I've been doing a bunch of studying, trying to figure out all the different programs, and I recognize some are government, so we have more information, and some are nonprofit and other entity run. So I guess that's when we ask about benchmarks, we can, I assume, only talk about the benchmarks that the government pays for programs.
Peter.
Oh, I just want to point out that Heather is talking about the work of the pre-child services, and Tasha is talking about some of these other benchmarks. I highly recommend you're diving into the details of the Village Reach report and the accompanying spreadsheet, which does detail all of those things very specifically, and any thoughts that you have on what is going to help us as policymakers. What are those things that we need on the dashboard that we want to review each month? Bring them forward, because all of it is in there. Now it is time for policymakers like those in this body to really start digging into those. What is going to help us to determine where to put our emphasis, where to put our dollars, what is working, what isn't. But Village Reach did a great job with detailing all of those measures. So we've got work to do, and we want to, in the next few months, try to figure that out.
Indeed, I totally agree. Other conversation on our enabling kind of both the statute and the ordinance for both our committees. Jill?
Yes, one thing you might want to consider, one factor you might want to consider is when scheduling an annual review or a periodic review of these statutes is timing that review to coincide with the onboarding of new IPRTF members. We have 4 members who have terms expiring at the end of January, and I know it will have at least 1 new member who will start February 1st. And that happens every 2 years generally.
That's a good call, Jill, that to have new members and then a reminder for us that may have forgotten those relationships between the 2 organizations. So, all right. Excellent conversation. Thank you, Heather, for bringing that up. Next is a Justice Project implementation plan, and it's just kind of left blank. I don't know who's talking about what. Do we have anything from J-Pop?
I think we're on the action plan, right? So where are we? Very sorry.
Well, maybe if I put on these stupid glasses. No, there's no agenda item for that. There's Justice Project implementation plan updates, number 4.
Oh, that's where we are. Marty, that's you.
I got to leave, so join you next time.
Okay,
Yes,
take care of that, Paul. See you tomorrow.
This is a kind of a nice segue with what we were just talking about, really. I don't have something specific about J-Pop, but about the data dashboard and metrics. And we're all, a bunch of us are working together to try to accomplish the Village Reach recommendations, and so I just want to say that Village Reach laid out several short-term recommendations, which is the next, it was a 6 to 12 month time period, and then several longer-term recommendations. And Holly and I have within our existing contract time that we can put toward the short-term recommendation that reads, begin reporting early indicators using existing data. And so we're in conversation with Bertie, Dean, Peter, specifically about that and how to go about reporting these existing data, finding them, getting it organized, and getting something that looks like a very interim data dashboard online before the by the first quarter of next year. But the data collection part we're doing right now. We're trying to explore this. We'll meet with them again this afternoon to Bertie, Dean, and Peter to just make sure that we are really all in agreement about how to go about it and what we're aiming for. And I expect some of you will be hearing from us about that, just trying to collect, and then we will draft something. You'll see that too in various groups. Like if you're on Index or J-Pop, I expect you'll be hearing more about this. Holly, Peter, Birdie, anybody else want to say anything related?
I think you said it really well. And that what I was saying before, it's like, let's all, as policymakers, people interested in policy, let's really dive in and look for what we want to measure
Yes.
and bring forward so we can make these.
And so, you know, what we're looking at is an interim step on the way to the long-term village reach recommendation, which is to, it says, reprioritize existing staff efforts to support data reporting for indicators that require minimal additional effort. So it's kind of a stepwise progression that we're aiming for with those data that require like data sharing agreements and this kind of integration like Tasha was talking about with police departments, or you know, all of that is the next step that we know we really want to see happen. And yeah, so building a process here.
That sounds good, Marty. Anything else from J-Pop, Tasha, Hannah? Where'd Hannah go? Oh, she left.
No, I think Marty and Holly covered it pretty good. So.
All right. Anything more on the implementation plan?
I did just
Did
think
you
of
want
one
to talk
thing.
about? Oh, go ahead, Marty.
With regard to J-Pop, the notes from the October J-Pop meeting should wind up in your packet for the IPRTF, and that's where we want to make sure you all get what we learned from our panel and presentation that we had in October. It was already referenced earlier in the meeting, but you have a meeting summary, and there's the video recording. And I just want to encourage you to at least read the summary, because there's good stuff coming out of these panels, and we're aiming for another panel in January. So sorry. Okay, done.
I didn't want to imply there wasn't. There was some good information in panels. There was just some information I was hoping for. I reread Marty's notes earlier today, and they're detailed and great. So again, I encourage you to read them again, because we all take away different things from each panel, and so it's good to read. That helps trigger like, oh yeah, they did say that, because you end up focusing on one thing and then reading the notes. So thanks, Marty, for those great detailed notes.
All right, and I thought I heard you wanting to talk about the action plan. Let's plug, we don't have an agenda item, but let's plug it in.
And Barry, I'm hoping to talk about an item I'd like to have us cover in the next IPRTF meeting.
Okay, that's our final agenda item.
Thank you. Just want to leave time for it.
Sure. Action plan.
Great. I'm going to share screen, so this is quick. Just wanted to, since we've got the committee chairs here, just remind everybody where we left off with our action planning. So you may recall that back in October, we had a really great discussion where we looked at the priorities and everybody spoke to these two questions. I'm actually going to show you this slide because it was really good. This is what we had everybody speak to. What would be the one thing you'd like to accomplish, or you'd like your committee and work group to accomplish? And then what would be your top priority for the IPRTF as a whole? So, you know, to Tasha's point there a moment ago, it would, I think, going back for everybody, if you haven't looked at this recently, going back to those notes would be valuable. And then here's where we are in our process. So our hope was that after that discussion at the full IPRTF meeting, that the committees and work groups would develop their 2026 action plans and submit them by November 30th. So Barry, the reason I wanted to make sure we slip this into the agenda is, how are we doing with that? Are we on board? Are people able to do that? Do they need help? Do they need support so that we can pull all that together before the end of the year and be ready to approve a full action plan in January? So that's where we're at right now. And so I just love to touch base with the chairs who are still in the room. Like, how's it going? Do you need anything?
Yeah, co-chairs, how's it going?
Do you want me to call on you? Would that help? Tasha, why don't you go first? How are we doing with our J-pop action planning?
I think we're coming together. I think as we've discussed, I think there's a lot of value in the ongoing panel discussions, touching base with one of stated in many of the goals is lived experience. I loved our lived experience panel. And so just continuing to create spaces for voices that don't regularly come to these meetings so that we are ensuring that we're not staying in our own echo chamber, but continuing to listen to the diverse voices of our communities is great. So I look forward to continuing to come up with different and diverse panels for that.
Right, thank you. And we do have the J-pop meeting is on Thursday the 20th, so we're going to be able to work on our action plan with the whole group on the 20th. So we are on task to get it done by the 30th. I want to also take this, I know you all remember, but just in case, the jail BCC community meeting is that same night. Don't forget, in Ferndale. And I know people have been working hard on that. So again, all we need to do now is just like, how's it going? Are you going to be able to get us your priorities by the end of November? So Bertie, you're up.
Well, index committee, I'm sorry to say, is like one step forward, two steps back. We had an action plan a couple of months ago to get just the basic data that for 2024 even that is theoretically readily available. And the meeting has been sidestepped twice now by people just being too busy on the jail and other priorities. And so it's very difficult. I mean, the people that have access to the data are the people who appear to be the most busy and distracted by other things going on in their professional lives. And so we are really making zero progress. And we have one meeting coming up in early December that yesterday's meeting that didn't happen was supposed to be planning for. And when it didn't happen, I asked them to, reschedule, but I haven't heard. And I don't know if it's going to happen. And I think that is a reality that I'm begrudgingly making more public because you could only do so much. And it's not that the people aren't faithful and interested in come to the meeting, but they just can't have the access to available time, even to do sort of minimal, and I don't mean to make this sound easy, but I mean even to do relatively self-limited thinking and tasks in between. And it's just what it is. And
Great. Well, thanks for the reality check. That's
yeah,
really
I'm open
we
to
need to have those
brilliant
conversations.
ideas on workarounds.
Yeah. Peter, go ahead.
Bertie, I'm wondering in this situation whether perhaps in the absence of people being able to make time for meetings that we'd be happy to, Heather and I could work with you to set an agenda for next year. And
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
yeah, I think if there is a vacuum, it needs to be filled by people who are willing to lead. And
yeah, exactly. And I think it's just a sign of the times and the sign of what's what the realities are for our county right now and the people that are in those positions and what's on their plates. So I would be more than happy to meet with you and see if we can get something off the ground.
The other thing that I wanted to say, Holly, is I see Dan just left, and we don't have Wendy here or Raylene, and I'm wondering, would you be willing to reach out to them and get them offline
Yeah,
and talk to
sure.
them? Okay.
And we have Brian here, so we could have Brian, and then Barry, you could speak as well. And Jill, I see your hands up.
And just a reminder that the Legal and Justice Committee had their discussion at their October meeting. And Holly and Marty, I think I sent you that information already. So that's done with them.
Fantastic. Great. Barry, were you going to chime in?
No, sorry.
Okay. So steering committee is another one though, right? Steering committee, what are, priorities that the steering committee might have, which I bet we could kind of piece together just from what we already know. Brian, how about for you? Do you feel like you could speak to the behavioral health?
Well, I think particularly related to the diversion and reentry work group, I think we're looking forward to the steering committee, as I understand it from prior meetings, kind of restructuring or reformatting how these work groups, are composed, and so that's one thing that and Dan and I have talked about this, but we're not meeting in November, but we will meet in December and we will have an action plan. Is it by the end of the year or?
We were hoping originally to get stuff by the end of November so that we could present it to the IPRTF
Oh,
as
I
a
see.
holistic document. But, we'll do the best we can.
Yeah.
Do you know when your December meeting is scheduled?
It's Jill, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't it it's the second or third Tuesday?
Yes, it is December 16th, and it is a joint meeting with the Legal and Justice Committee.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
I think Dan and I will work on this a little bit in the interim. So we'll have something definitely by the 16th or sooner, but I would, maybe I should have another conversation maybe with Peter about how these work groups might be restructured going forward.
That'd be great. And Peter, I think I'm hearing you also being really willing to step forward to say, here's some ideas. And I think
Oh yeah, absolutely.
just helping for everybody, just getting your committees to say, kind of building from what we've already heard from our IPRTF meeting in October, like what is the main thing you're trying to accomplish, or three things. And then if you can build out a calendar with some timeline, that's awesome. But at least getting, there's so many things we can do. I think that's the tricky part, is how do we focus so that we are really dialing in something where we can say at the end of the year, yay, we all feel good, we're reinforced because we accomplished something that we wanted to do. So yeah, so I think I will follow up with folks who aren't here today for chairs. Peter, you're going to follow up with Bertie and can check in with Brian too. And J-Pop, we've got you covered. Anybody else want to speak to priorities and the action plan? Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
let's move to our last item. That is items for the next full IPTRF meeting. And I think, Peter, we'll let you kick it off here.
Yeah, I would be, let's see, Heather, are you still here? I meant to call you today and chat with you about this. But I would really like to have an opportunity for us to, in the IPRTF, to discuss the upcoming sim mapping work that we're going to do, because one of the critical things that we really need this to do before we do all this work, 60 people, up to 60 people over a day and a half. That's a lot of investment we're doing. And how is it that we're going to use this sim map process, or not the process, but the results to help us in our work. How is it going to help? Is it Project 6, where we're where we are trying to help the continuum of care with better coordination and better communications. And this is just an incredible opportunity. It's the last time we did a sim mapping, and we used, let's see, the behavioral health gap analysis team did a great job of looking for those gaps, and really dove in. And we on the stakeholder advisory committee and the justice project planning team, et cetera, used that to move everything forward so that we could pass this levy and come up with the implementation plan that we use as the center of all of our work. So this time, let's take the time, I'm proposing in the IPRTF, to have a robust conversation about how it is that we could, what do we want to end up with the sim mapping. And I've talked to Dean about this. I don't know if Dean is still on the call, but he was interested in this. And I thought that perhaps we could, between Dean and myself and Heather and the others who are part of that process, we could lead a discussion with all those great people in the room, looking for how we can use this, the outcomes. Heather, can you?
Dean is available, so.
Oh, hey, Dean.
Dean, could you pop on and give us your?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think, the way I heard you saying it, Peter, was once we get the product of this sim mapping session, how are we going to use that information? What do we want it to help us do? And I think particularly, you and I talked about the notion of not just knowing what services might be available and could be used by people who are being diverted at various intercept points, but what's the process by which that can happen? And so getting into more detail about, the means by which people would be referred, mapping those kinds of flows of individuals into those diversion opportunities. That was my sense of what we talked about particularly, but there may be other
that's great.
uses. Yeah, maybe other uses that people have in mind beyond simply knowing what services could be available.
Yeah, and one of the things that really occurred to me is that when you're doing a gap analysis like this, often I think we in the or those in the kind of the government and nonprofit realm are looking for these gaps to fill with new programs, perhaps, or new funding. But there's also the opportunity to look for where there are overlaps and inefficiencies and use the current monies and organizations that we have to do a better job with what we're already doing. So that's one frame to look at it.
All right. Anything else on next meeting? Marty?
Just you just got me brainstorming with myself here about that sim mapping. And there are, if you go through the implementation plan, there are really obvious projects where it's like identify the gaps and holes. And so it should help with all of those, but also there is a responsibility that the IPRTF has to update the implementation plan as needed, to recommend updates to the implementation plan as needed. That's something that we had kind of tabled for this last year because it was pretty early in the process, and we kind of weren't ready. But the sim mapping may provide some information that would lead us to consider ways in which things have moved since the implementation plan was developed, and we might want to suggest some kind of updates to it at that point.
Barry, I like this idea that Marty has brought forward, and it has been several years, of course, since the council passed the implementation plan. I would assume that we could go through a process where the IPRTF makes recommendations to the council to update that plan. Is that the process that would be used?
That sounds about right. I mean, I'll dig into it a little bit more to find out what the
Mm.
details are around that, but yes, that is true.
Okay. I mean, for instance, 1 and 2 have been accomplished.
Yeah.
So we could either drop those or replace them with other things. There aren't a whole lot of agenda items for the upcoming meeting, and I think that SIM conversation would be half an hour, 45 minutes. It gives us an opportunity to talk about some other things. And one thing I would just like to throw out there that I have noticed in the last, I don't know, few months, years, is that there really isn't a good understanding for what diversion really is. If you've ever heard Stark speak about what true diversion is, I think he needs to say it again to everybody, because that's a really specific and important viewpoint. And then also, nobody holds the list of all the diversions. Well, except me. I made up a list of all the diversions I could think of. And it would just be an interesting conversation to have around what are our diversions and how are they different and how would we classify them and how are they used and how could they be assessed. So if you all were willing, perhaps we can have a conversation about that as well.
I fully support that.
Me too. And make sure we get Stark there because he does give the best really 101 in what diversion is and isn't.
Yeah. Well, yes. He's got definitely a different, an important definition for diversion, or what we call true diversion.
True diversion.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
I would be happy to come up with some materials but I would like to check in. Heather, it sounds like you've got interest in this. Perhaps we could work together and create something for the meeting. Between that SIM discussion and Dosh Holly action plan, do we have some? Should we be talking about the action plan in the next meeting, or what are you thinking? Yeah. Okay. Well, those are 3 items. Jill, are we missing anything?
The items that I have scheduled for the agenda are the draft year-end report, the standing agenda item, which is the review of the IPRTF priorities, goals, and action plan updates. You've added the SIM mapping, and you've added a conversation about diversion with Stark. I can invite Stark. I can't make him attend, just FYI. And then committee reports will just be Jay Poppin steering this month, so that should be fairly short.
Okay.
I have oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Peter and Heather, if you can get to me by first thing Monday morning, the order in which you want these agenda items and any supplemental materials that you have to include in the packet, I can finalize the agenda on Monday.
Yeah, and I want to take responsibility, Jill. I'm sorry that I didn't realize the rules around all of the public and didn't mean to surprise you at all. And just so you all know, my orientation to it is I'm going to try to, I think it's nice to have the action items highlighted. What are the votes needed? And then the discussion category, what really is going to be thoughtfully discussed. And then there's kind of an update category that's more just like FYIs, this is happening, doesn't need a lot of discussion. And then the community and roundtable reports, so just so you know, there is a logic behind it. It isn't just random, but yes, Peter and I will get you, if you could send us what you have as the list of agenda items that we came up with and what and then we'll arrange it.
I will be happy to do that. And I don't think it's one thing to keep in mind as well, which I don't think will apply to this upcoming agenda, is that if there's going to be a presentation by someone who particularly is a paid contractor, I try to schedule them first so they can come do their presentation and go and don't have to sit through the meeting,
Got
which
it.
will end up costing a little bit of money. So that's another
Okay.
factor to keep in mind. But yeah, I'll send this out.
Thanks,
soon.
Jill.
Yep. Thanks, Heather.
All right, sounds like that's a wrap on our planning for the next meeting. Any other business? Is there anyone from the public that would like to address the steering committee? This is an opportunity for public comment.
We have no one in our conference room. We have a couple of attendees. If you'd like to speak to the committee, please virtually raise your hand now. And no hands are raised.
Okay, Jill, can I get you to stay for just a couple seconds?
Yes.
Okay, with that, everybody, we are adjourned. Have a good rest of your week.